Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Here we go on a Tuesday morning as we continue to react to the big trade in the NFL. The Jets send Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers. They get back a 6th-round pick in this year's draft. They get a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick in the 2022 draft. And now joining us on our progressive guest line to break down this trade from a variety of different angles is the founder of TurnOnTheJets.com, a good friend of this show. He is Joe Caporoso, and he joins us now. Joe, as always, appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Give me your initial reaction to this trade with Darnold going to the Panthers and the Jets now taking a quarterback in this draft, 2nd overall.
Relief. I think this has been a long time coming, and it has kind of dragged out maybe a little longer than most expected to or wanted it to. This was one of those things that was pretty inevitable. Once it became clear the Jets were going to be picking in the top, 1 to 3 area of the NFL draft, it just made too much financial and team building sense to turn the page and move on to a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, especially in a class that's as talented as this one. So it was just a matter of not if Darnold was going to get traded, but when. I think there was some concern it could drag all the way through the draft or up into draft weekend. And I think all things considered, it's good for Sam Darnold. It's good for the Jets. I think Joe Douglas did a good job getting a pretty reasonable haul for a guy who statistically is really in the bottom, 3 of the league as a starting quarterback. Really got more than even what the Josh Rosen package was after his rookie year. And I think most of us thought it'd be about the same, but gets 3 draft picks. And I think the Jets should feel good about that and now can move forward with taking a quarterback number 2 overall.
You and I have both been very outspoken that we like Sam Darnold, the person, but the right move was to move on, trade him, and then start fresh with a rookie quarterback. But I want your perspective. I want you to explain to our listeners here why you think it was the right move, why the Jets had no choice but to move on from Sam, trade him, and now start fresh, likely with Zach Wilson 2nd overall.
Well, look, I think you want your head coach, your general manager, and your quarterback on the same timeline. And you want the luxury that comes with having a contract for a rookie quarterback, which allows you to spend more on the rest of the team. You also don't want to get stuck in no man's land when it comes to fixing quarterback. Kind of like, a team like the Bears is a good recent example. The Jets keep Darnold, and he improves, but is still, I don't know, the 20th best quarterback in the league. Maybe the Jets are 6-10 or 6-11 now next year, and they're picking, 13th or 14th. They're unsure whether you want to pay Darnold long term, and then you're sort of stuck kind of in purgatory. What do? You're out of the range to draft a quarterback. Next year's class is not supposed to be as deep as this year's one. And if you're not picking in the top 3, then you have to give up draft picks to go get a quarterback, which is exactly what you had to do in 2018 to get Darnold anyway. And there's just no proof to date that Darnold can be a top, I don't know, even 12 to 15 quarterback. The Ryan Tannehill example is really popular, but statistically, Ryan Tannehill was a lot better early in his career and with Adam Gase than Darnold was. I know he had a better situation, but with Darnold, you have to play the history and the statistics, and it's just rare for someone who produces at the level that he did in his first 40 starts to develop into a very good starting quarterback. Do I think he get to being an okay, average starting quarterback in the perfect situation? Sure. But you have to do everything else perfect for that to be good enough for you to be competitive. And I think you want to try to strive to be better. And it only made sense for them to, with a new head coach, with Joe Douglas still with 5 years on his contract, to just turn the page and reset the clock with a rookie quarterback.
Joe Caporoso, founder of TurnOnTheJets.com, with us here on the Jake Asman Show. I want to go back to something you just said there, Joe. The Ryan Tannehill example seems to be the most popular example for those that wanted the Jets to stick with Sam. But my counter to that would be, if Sam's only going to end up being Ryan Tannehill, that's not good enough if you're ever going to win a Super Bowl. Like, if your quarterback's only going to be Ryan Tannehill, your ceiling's pretty capped. You're in the Kirk Cousins area of quarterback play, the Derek Carr area of quarterback play. Like, the Jets, if they're ever going to win anything, they need a top 10 quarterback. And as nice as Tannehill's played the last couple seasons, that's never going to be good enough long term if you're truly going to win a championship.
Yeah, you want to try to be great at quarterback. I mean, that's usually the biggest driving factor as to who's winning championships and consistently competing for championships. You look at, there's always going to be a couple anomalies. Once every 6 or 7 years, you get a Joe Flacco or an Eli breaks through and wins one. But for the most part, it's Brady, it's Manning, it's Mahomes. These are the guys who are winning championships. And I'm not saying that whoever the Jets draft is going to be that guy, immediately or ever. But this is an offensive league. You want to try to find a guy who is a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the league and be aggressive trying to find them, because you need to score points to compete. You don't want to settle and say, we're going to hope that Darnold could be about Jimmy Garoppolo, and then if we build an absolutely perfect team around him, we could get to the cusp of winning a championship, but not quite good enough, and then be ready to move on from him, a year or so later, which the Niners are in that situation. Now, you want to go say, let's see if we can get our version of Justin Herbert, because now the Chargers are going to have such a big advantage going forward in how they recruit free agents, how they build a team, because of how productive he was as a rookie, or any of the other young quarterbacks in the NFL that have been, changing for their franchises. Even a guy like Josh Allen, who started a little slower, but was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last year. And now Buffalo is, a half away from the Super Bowl. So you want to try to search for that dynamic playmaker, not a game manager. Because you have to do everything else absolutely perfect. If you're settling for a game manager, and if you swing for the fences and eventually connect, everything else gets a lot easier.
Joe Caporoso, the founder of TurnOnTheJets.com, joining us here, also does a podcast called Badlands, which if you're a Jet fan, I highly encourage you check that out as well. Joe, let's talk about this draft pick. Of course, second overall, all signs point to Zach Wilson. Is Wilson the guy you're the highest on out of any of these quarterbacks? Assuming Lawrence goes 1, is Wilson the guy you would take if you're Joe Douglas?
Yeah, look, this is a really good quarterback class, and I think there's a reason that 5 guys are probably going in the top 7, maybe, if not the top 10. I like Wilson a touch more than Fields. I think they're 2A and 2B in this quarterback class for me, with Lance at 3 and Mac Jones at 4. Lawrence will end up going 1, no doubt. But with Wilson, I think he's very likely to be the pick. I wouldn't put it at 100%, maybe like 90 to 95%. Never know. You could get surprised by a field selection. I think both guys in the right situation are going to be very good to great starters in the NFL. With Wilson, just a really quick twitch athlete, quick release, big arm, and exciting outside of the pocket, and should be theoretically a good fit for what the Jets want to do on offense. I think Fields would be too, but Wilson's likely to be the guy. So I think what he can do on play action, outside of the pocket, attacking down the field, outside the numbers, and when he does take shots down the field, can move a little bit and, escape in the pocket, should be a good fit and an exciting fit for what the Jets want to eventually build on offense. Still have a lot more work to do. They got a little better at receiver this offseason. Offensive line still needs help. Running back is still a bit of a question mark. Hopefully Chris Herndon is more of a factor at tight end than he was last year, but it wouldn't hurt to take another addition there. But strictly from a quarterback perspective, Wilson's an exciting guy who's rightly going to go in the top 2 or 3 of this class. And the Jets, I know it was only 3 years ago it was Sam Darnold to swing in the top 3, but they didn't have to give up picks to go up and do this. And I don't know, it's the 3rd time in 12 years they're really trying to fix quarterback. That's not that crazy of an amount to do for the most important position in all of sports. So I think Jets fans should be excited. And I think like any rookie, there'll probably be ups and downs, but I think the ceiling and the big playability is going to substantially improve from the transition from Darnold to Wilson.
How about the fact that the Jets appear to have, at least at the minimum here, Joe, a competent coaching staff? I mean, explain to the national audience listening right now just how inept the Jets have been from a coaching standpoint the last 2 seasons under Adam Gase, and how by accident, if Robert Saleh just shows up to work on time, the Jets likely will finally have a significant upgrade at coaching for the first time since the early days of the Rex Ryan era.
It's been as bad as the memes and the jokes make it out to be. I think all of us, not all of us, most of us, hated the hire, and it was proven to be a right hire to not like. And the Jets were just slow, unimaginative, boring to watch on offense. They played with very limited competitive fire. Many games they would be down 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns at halftime, and basically come out in the second half and run the clock out rather than compete. Gase was just an unmitigated disaster from top to bottom. And then the offensive staff he put around him was nothing to get excited about. The Jets never really properly built out a full staff. They never had a quarterback coach. They left everything to Gase and Dowell Loggins. And that's why you had the 32nd ranked offense in the NFL back-to-back years, among other reasons. So someone that has been as unpopular as any Jets head coach since Rich Kotite, if not even more unpopular than him, with social media around for everyone to voice their displeasure. So there's no guarantee that Robert Saleh is going to come in and be an amazing head coach. It's impossible for him to be worse than Adam Gase was, especially with the talent he's brought in on both sides of the football. And from a personality and an energy standpoint, it's hard not to see him resonating really well with the fan base right out of the gate.
Totally agree. Joe Caporoso, the founder of TurnOnTheJets.com, is our guest here on our Progressive Guest Line. You're listening to the Jake Asman Show on Sports Map Radio. Let's talk about the rest of this draft for the Jets, Joe. They have all these picks. They have now 4 picks in the top 100, including 2 ones, a early second-round pick, 34th overall. If you're Joe Douglas, how would you use the draft to fill out the rest of this roster? What would be an ideal draft for the Jets if you're Joe Douglas?
Offensive line, and more offensive line. As it stands now, the Jets have the same 5 starters they did last year, which is nowhere near good enough for a rookie quarterback. I hope they find a way to address guard early and often in this draft, and they have the picks to do so. Outside of that, cornerback is going to be a really popular spot mocked to the Jets because they're very thin there as well. I'm a little less worried about corner because of the pass rush that they put together this offseason with Carl Lawson and Sheldon Rankins and Vinny Curry. That should help mitigate that problem a little bit. And I just don't think defense is quite as important as offense, but they have to do more on offense to support the pick at number 2. They need to find a day 1 starter guard. They need to find more competition for the other guard spot. And it would not hurt to take a swing in a deep receiver class to further build out that group. And I'm sure on day 3, they'll be looking to add a little more juice to their backfield, their running back.
Are you optimistic about where this team's at finally?
I think compared to where they were the last couple of years, yeah, I think there's hope. Do I think this is a playoff team next year? Probably not. It's hard, even with 7 teams making it and with how long it's been for the Jets, I don't see that, but I do think they are going to be much more competitive than they were last year. This is not going to be a team who starts 1-7 or 0-8, which the Jets did the last 2 years. I think their defense, particularly their defensive front, is going to be one of the better groups, if not one of the best groups in the NFL. And I think they'll play above their talent level on paper on defense with Robert Saleh. I think offensively, it's going to come down to how quickly Zach Wilson acclimates. It's not a great offense on paper. There needs to be a lot more support built in, and they'll be counting on a lot of young players. I think they will make very notable strides from being a 2-14 team last year. Maybe that puts them in the 6-7 win range. And then I think you have to expect that by 2022, this team could be a playoff team, because by then you're talking about Joe Douglas's, really 4th year here. And I think it's fair by that point to expect those kind of results. This year, you want proof that you made the right call at quarterback. You want young players to show signs of developing with this new coaching staff. And you want the blowouts to stop and the season not to be over by Halloween, which it's been the past 2 years.
Wouldn't that be nice? He's Joe Caporoso, the founder of TurnOnTheJets.com. You can get him on Twitter. Follow him there at J Caporoso, and you can listen to his Jets podcast called Badlands there as well. Joe, appreciate your time, my friend. Always great to catch up. The end of the Darnold debate. It's over. Now we can look forward to Zach Wilson versus Justin Fields for a couple weeks and see what the Jets do. But appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Joe Caporoso with us there on our Progressive Guest Line. We'll take a quick break and continue. This is the Jake Asman Show here on a Tuesday morning on Sports Map Radio.